First came the fireball. Explosions ripped through the supply train until soldiers saw nothing but molten rails and black smoke. Then came the roar of motorcycles. 60 armed fighters speeding toward survivors, hoping to seize weapons and prisoners. At that moment, Israel was forced into a decision: retreat or escalate with every tool in its arsenal. What unfolded over the next few hours, under the code name Operation Iron Hounds, would shock both sides of the border, and it all started with this wrecked train. Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Why would Hamas throw both suicide drones and motorcycles at a single supply train? On paper, the target looked routine, just another stretch of tracks snaking across a contested border zone. But the train was no ordinary rail run. Each car was stacked with diesel drums, ration boxes packed for infantry units, and containers of live ammunition. The convoy was essentially a rolling warehouse, the kind of asset that kept frontline soldiers supplied when bases themselves were under artillery threat. To Hamas planners, stopping it wasn't just disrupting one delivery. It was a chance to reach into the bloodstream of Israel's military logistics and choke it at a single point. The strike was designed as a two-phase attack. First came the aerial swarm. Around 80 small drones, each rigged with explosive warheads, buzzed in from multiple flight paths. They weren't flying at high altitude like reconnaissance aircraft, but sweeping low, ducking radar and masking themselves against the terrain. Most of them didn't aim for personnel. They targeted the pressurized fuel cars, the very arteries of the train. The moment one drone made contact, a rolling firestorm began, heat waves buckling steel and smoke pillars climbing high enough for satellites to catch. Inside crew compartments, soldiers tried to douse flames or detach burning cars, but another wave kept pounding the convoy until entire sections of track glowed red with heat. The sound of rupturing fuel tanks echoed like secondary explosions, masking the approach of the ground assault unit. That second phase was far more traditional. 30 motorcycles, each carrying 2 fighters, punched hard across dusty ground aimed directly at the flaming wreckage. The chaos was exactly what they needed. The train crew already disoriented, communications breaking up, emergency calls competing with fire alarms. The motorcycles swarmed in like cavalry, using speed and maneuver to close distance before reinforcements could arrive. Some carried light machine guns, others loaded rocket-propelled grenades, almost all of them equipped with bags intended to haul away rifles, ammunition belts, even electronic gear ripped from the compartments. Their intent wasn't random destruction, it was targeted theft and capture. The gamble was straightforward in theory. A destroyed train could spark shortages down the line. Captured ammunition and soldiers would give propaganda value and bargaining chips. And the mere spectacle would signal capacity to innovate against a better-equipped foe. What the planners risked was equally stark. By attacking so openly and so aggressively, they ensured that the retaliation would not remain confined to the rails. Once that fireball lit up the night sky, the incident ceased to be a raid and became an open declaration that the battlefield had shifted to critical networks once thought safe. And with Israeli units trapped in a ring of fire, communications shredded, and motorcycle squads racing closer by the second, one question suddenly pushed to the front. What could Israel possibly do next, surrounded by a disaster zone that was about to ignite into something far larger? The burning train was supposed to be a victory, a dramatic display of innovation by the attackers. But within hours, it became the bait for a far larger counterstrike. Smoke was still rising from scorched fuel cars when Israeli commanders in Tel Aviv assembled inside an emergency war council. 4 hours after the fireball, military and intelligence chiefs outlined the scale of the disaster and the risks of leaving the assault unanswered. The calculation was direct. Not only had a vital supply line been shredded, but dozens of soldiers were unaccounted for, and the attackers were broadcasting images of captured gear. The response had to move fast, and more importantly, it had to show that one ambush on a train would not dictate the rhythm of the war. What followed in the next half-day shocked Hamas units who had staged the strike. Rather than a limited reprisal, the Israeli command released Operation Iron Hounds. The plan pulled entire brigades out of standby positions and brought in precision assets designed for broad coordination. Thousands of troops began moving before sunrise, reinforced by columns of armored personnel carriers and mobile artillery systems. Above them, a swarm of Israeli UAVs charted every road, alley, and orchard near the ambush zone. Lockdown spread quickly across the region. Access roads leading in or out of the ambush site were cut within hours. Armored vehicles blocked main routes, while smaller squads used quad bikes and light vehicles to seal farm paths and secondary tracks. The airspace filled with reconnaissance drones, some circling at high altitude, others orbiting low enough that their constant buzz never stopped. Reinforcements from covert Israeli bases surged forward in tight formations, pushing into villages where armed fighters were suspected to be regrouping. What was intended to be a quick withdrawal for the ambushers suddenly felt like encirclement. Every path of escape carried the risk of running directly into a mechanized column or being spotted by an overhead camera. And it wasn't just the surface that Israel targeted. In War Council maps, officials had marked suspected tunnel access points barely a few hundred yards from civilian homes. Intelligence assessments showed these openings linked into storage hubs, command rooms, and hidden arms caches. Operation Iron Hounds shifted into underground destruction. Infantry squads hurled grenades into identified shafts, followed by remote sensors that confirmed depth and structure. Within minutes, more than 350 loitering munitions were dispatched, each programmed to hunt for RPG nests, sniper hideouts, or ammunition piles. Explosions rippled through entry sites, collapsing supports and forcing fighters inside to scramble further down. The heaviest strikes came from specialized bunker buster drones designed to penetrate deep soil and reinforced concrete. Some bore through nearly 90 feet of earth before unleashing shaped charges. Monitors tracking seismic signatures registered collapses of chambers that had taken years to carve out. Command rooms with sandbagged ceilings imploded in seconds. Fuel depots ignited underground, choking the air with toxic smoke. Entire communication hubs, once insulated with thick walls and redundant power cables, went silent in less than 20 minutes. The scale of collapse was staggering. Once regarded as a secure labyrinth, the tunnel network unraveled chamber by chamber. Ammunition stockpiles cooked off, encrypted radios were reduced to scrap, and supply chains inside Gaza's soil dropped offline. With fortifications falling, Israeli units pushed through wreckage, not only reclaiming material looted from the supply train, but also recovering missing personnel who had been dragged underground. Prisoner guards fled or were killed in tunnel cave-ins as structures pancaked above them. What had been built to withstand siege folded under the pressure of relentless, synchronized tactics. By the evening, the image had flipped completely. The ambush that was supposed to project strength ended up revealing desperation. Hamas had shown it could innovate with drones and motorcycles, but in doing so, it had lured the conflict into domains where Israel held vast superiority. Operation Iron Hounds made one fact clear: a bold strike designed for symbolic impact can collapse into ruin when it triggers overwhelming retaliation. And in this case, what started as a pyrotechnic raid on a single train ended as a demonstration of how even carefully choreographed surprise can backfire into strategic overreach. Hamas aimed to deliver a symbolic strike, showcasing strength through speed and surprise. Instead, the raid exposed fragile infrastructure both above ground and deep below, where tunnels collapsed under concentrated fire. Years of hidden labor vanished in minutes, turning an intended spectacle into a costly revelation of weaknesses. Modern battlefields allow no pause. Attacks meant to inspire fear now trigger instant, high-tech retaliation that can reset the balance before night falls. If one ambush on a supply train unleashed such force, what does it reveal about the scale and pace of escalation shaping tomorrow's unpredictable conflicts? How long is this going to last? Don't forget to share your thoughts and give this video a thumbs up.